Smash Up, the card game where you smash two factions together and fight each other over bases from AEG. This game has been extremely popular with many expansions, meaning many factions for you to choose from. I actually did a tier list video a while back, ranking them and how I felt about playing them, whether it be strengths or just whether I enjoy using those factions. And since then, there have been a few more Smash Up expansions released, particularly two big ones. A third one, technically, if you count the print to play base, but that's just a base, so throw it in your game if you like. There you go. That's my review of that. Now, the two big things we want to talk about is obviously the thing behind me, Smash Up Marvel, which is a Smash Up core set that has Marvel characters, and a standalone pack Goblins, similar to the Penguins and Sheep. Now, I'm going to discuss what these bring to the table, if there's any differences, then add them to my tier list and see where they end up. Let's start with the Goblin set really quick before we head on to the Marvel Smash Up, because it's a little bit quicker. As you can see, it comes with its classic pack of cards and a divider. Nothing special about it. The gimmick of the Goblins, as you can read here, is flipping coins. The Goblin, for example, will have you flip a coin for each Goblin in play, including this one. For each heads, you put a +1/+1 counter on it. It does not have a coin, so please do make sure that you have a coin. However, most cards you come across, such as a Little Help, will give you an effect if you get heads, but a different effect if you hit tails. Rarely are you going to flip a coin and get nothing if you get the wrong result. There's also a couple of cards such as Make Your Own Luck and Diviner that will help you swap the result in case there's something you really wanted. And of course, cards like Chaos Lord will give you bonuses to your coin flip in addition to whatever else you're getting. With all that out of the way, let's get to the Marvel set. This includes 8 groups, what you'd expect for the size of a full core set. So you will have 4 hero groups and 4 villain groups. That doesn't really matter anything, it's more for just a equal balance of heroes and villains. And as you can see here, they sort of mirror each other. So Spider-Man has the Spider-Man villains. We've got Shield and Hydra. The Ultimates, which to me are new, but I think they've appeared multiple times in the comics. They're sort of a Space Avengers with, well, the Kree, aliens that don't like, well, at least don't like many people. And then there's the Avengers with the Masters of Evil. Now, there are a few differences in this core set compared to others. If you notice, you have character instead of minion. They're the same thing in terms of rules. So if you have a card that says target a minion, it can target a character. If you have a card that says target a character, it can target a minion. So just changing of words. There's also the ability of moving. In the other Smash Ups, move is strictly just for moving characters. And this, moving could be anything, whether it is a character as this person does, or if you're moving modifiers or action cards. Speaking of modifiers, which you may see a lot of here, for example, are just things you play on, such as actions or bases. It will tell you where it's supposed to go. It pretty much modifies whatever it's played on. It's not technically a new thing, it's just a keyword. The final thing comes with the dividers. If I remove some of these, you see the symbols that you would expect. However, flipping them over shows art from a card and a little explanation of who they are and what they do, as well as the complexity level of using them. This is a great way to use it as a guide in case you're curious of whether someone who may be newer to Smash Up should use someone maybe with a little bit lower complexity, or they want something a bit more challenging. Let's tackle the first group, Avengers. This is one I'm sure a lot of people want to play with. The way they work is there is one copy of each of the Avengers in the deck. There's also a unique card for each of them that gets a bonus, usually if they're involved with the character. Now, there's some other cards as well that help you support them and hopefully get these characters back. This group is all about finding that one-of-a-kind hero, using their one-of-a-kind items, one that you have that one-of-a-kind hero out, and hopefully being able to save the day and conquer the base. The Ultimates are all about trying to make sure nothing bad happens outside of Earth's orbit, which means they're going to have to move pretty quickly to get from one trouble on one planet to another. So as you can see, they do a lot of moving, and reward so, such as being able to move themselves, or getting bonuses should people move to or from the base that they're at. The Ultimates are all about trying to move around from base to base and trying to trip up your opponents before you all swoop in and score on a base that no one was expecting. Next, we've got Spider-Verse, which is just pretty much spider people. They're all about swinging in at special moments. So you'll see a lot of special special. That's what they do. When the base scores, that's when they're going to swing in and save the day at the last minute. They've also got some ways to flip over the top of the deck, actually sort of similar in my mind to the web slinging that we see in Upper Decks Marvel, with being able to look at the top cards and sort of rearrange them or get things that way. I'm a little sad they don't include Noir Spider-Man, but it is nice to have actually 4 different Spider-Man with only one of them having the name Peter Parker. S.H.I.E.L.D. is all about getting your troops out onto the field, and is the only hero group that has a, generic named person instead of someone with a specific name. As you can see, they have plenty of cards of playing extra actions, usually 3 or less, so mostly these guys, though that pumps themselves up as soon as they're with other people. So this is definitely all about making sure you control your troops and overwhelm your opponents with superior firepower. Now we move on to the villains. First off, Masters of Evil. Their idea is they really want you to try to get victory points. Yes, everyone wants victory points, but as you can see, you're going to get cards that give you victory points, usually at a cost. But for every 4 you have, you're going to get stronger powers. So this is really trying to manage your resources correctly, using your absorbing man of whether you're going to sacrifice them or not in order to maybe get that extra point you need to hit 4 to maybe get an extra draw or extra power. Fun fact, I'm pretty sure this is Absorbing Man when he was infected during the cycle of the special weapons from Asgard that turned a bunch of people into sort of slaves for an ancient god. The Kree are up next, and if you can't tell, they love actions. They're going to do all they can to play a lot more. And draw some cards because your hand's probably going to be empty from playing all those cards. This does make them very similar to Wizards. However, they do got a couple extra unique cards. In particular, the one I'd like to point out is Kree Sentry, in which you can sneak up on power by stacking them all together. And once you get 2 actions, next thing you know, you got +6 power if you got 3 of those sentries in one place. Next up is the Sinister Six. They like things a little bit easier. So what they're going to try to do is use a lot of base modifiers to hopefully reduce the breakpoint of a base from whatever it is to at or below 19. Now, like Avengers, they've spread out their characters a bit more because they needed 6 different kinds of villains. Sinister Six. Unlike the Avengers, however, most of these cards won't ask for a specific person to be in play. It's simply just going to ask if that breakpoint is 19 or less, which they do a pretty good job at ganging up and trying to make sure it's an easy heist. We're going to finish up with Hydra. As you can see here, they actually have a little less diversity because they actually got quite a bit of Hydra agents here. Not at like Innsmouth level of the same copy of Minion, but a bit more. And this leaves single copies of all their generals, but that's pretty fine. It's all about trying to get so many people on the field. And this character is destroyed, you get 2 more. And of course, there's plenty of ways to destroy a character to play more, therefore triggering its ability to play even more. You may be able to strike down 1 Hydra, but for every head you take down, 2 more will take its place. So for the most part, you probably get the Goblins thing. Not much difference, just like Penguins and Sheep. You can just throw it in and pick it up whatever you want. The Marvel one, on the other hand, is obviously designed to be not only just another big core set, but I would argue something that is expected to be picked up before anything else. With the dividers written the way they are, as well as maybe some of those word changes, I think they were thinking this is probably likely to be more picked up from someone who has never picked up a Smash Up game before. And I think you can also see that with actually how the groups are designed. Many of them, while they do try to reflect, what S.H.I.E.L.D. should do, what the Avengers are, I think they reflect what we've seen in previous groups, whether it's intentional or not, because it's like, oh, we think people would enjoy having something that plays a lot of minions out there, which we can see in both S.H.I.E.L.D. and Hydra, reminiscent of Innsmouth, or more in particular from the original core set, robots. And of course, you could probably relate to some of these other factions as well. And I think that is not just because they're running out of ideas. I don't think that's the case, because Goblins obviously shows, which is a newer one, that they can come up with new things. I think it's just making sure that they don't do anything too weird or wild with this set, combined with the fact that the dividers, that they really wanted to hammer home, this is a core set that you can start with. Which would make sense, especially when you have the Marvel property. You're more likely to get people who are like, oh, I like Marvel, this looks cool, and pick that up before they know what the actual smash-up part is. Nothing wrong with that. It's honestly probably a solid place to start. You're going to see most of the core things, base modifiers, actions, playing extra actions, playing extra minions, big guys, small ones. So I think they hit the nail on that in terms of that audience. Now, that being said, what about the factions when you throw them all in? And this is where we're going to get to my tier list. We'll put up an image of my previous tier list up ahead if you want to complain about it, which plenty of people have, and people will going forward. That's the point of tier lists. It's for everyone to argue about the positions. You can comment and watch that video and see why I place things there, or, comment here. I'm going to tell you where I think these guys go. So, based on the tier list, I'm going to quickly go over what each rank is. Pass pretty much means I really don't like this group. I'm not going to play it, and honestly, there's a good chance I probably wouldn't suggest it for people unless they are attached to that faction for some reason because they think that's really cool. I just feel like mechanically it wasn't as fun, and when you have as many factions as you do in Smash Up, you can go on. Granted, I did put some things there that people think are overpowered and strong, but you know what? It wasn't my cup of tea. Now, try it is like I didn't like it too much, but I get the gimmick and I think it's a bit fun. Maybe every now and then I'll go for it. Fine. Well, it's fine. It's middle of the pack. You're probably not gonna have too many problems playing with it. Solid. Have a lot of fun with it. Probably would like to play it more. Will likely pick it. Which are some of my favorites. I think they have something that's just always so much fun to play with. And we get it. You're gonna win. These are honestly almost just should be with pass it. They shouldn't be picked because they're too good, or they've been overplayed a lot. So, what about these groups? I'm gonna lump all 9 together. So the 8 Marvel and the Goblins, and we'll start from the bottom, heading up. Now we do have one in pass it, and that's Avengers. I do not like this one copy of a bunch of guys and trying to support it with other things. It's just really inconsistent to me. And in particular, Avengers, compared to maybe some of the other groups, they have a lot of cards that say if you have Thor out, you get this. If you have Hulk out, which is, of course, what people would want if you think about it in terms of like, oh, I want Mjolnir and to interact with Thor, which we see a lot in maybe some other Marvel games. But the way Smash Up works is sometimes you just can never find them. You don't have a lot of ways to search your deck for those compared to others. Thor does find his hammer, but maybe some of the other cards not as much. And then what happens then if Thor then goes away because you scored a base or someone destroys it? You feel like there's a lot of times you just don't get as much as the efficiency you're hoping for compared to maybe other guys. It's too specific. And when other people are playing with multiple copy cards, it just feels like not just for me, but the people I played with when they had that group weren't having as much fun with it. Now, there are ways around it, and of course that happens with anyone in these groups. It just means Avengers, I think, really need to worry about who they're partner with. The obvious one, and one I think makes for the most enjoyable experience, especially someone who's probably wants to play Avengers, would be the superheroes. They too have a group of 5 cost power heroes in them, but they also have the normal citizen. I think I'm actually mixing that name up, who lets you search for a 5 cost hero on your turn. Meaning, if you have that Black Widow card in hand, you can use that to get Black Widow, or Hulk, or Captain America. So, those two together could make a very strong combination. Of course, there's other ones who have that similar thing, like princesses, who could probably help out with that, but you really are going to have to really try to make Avengers make their matchup. You can't just go blindly, I feel. That is the only one in pass it, though. Now, for the rest of these, I will honestly say it was a little bit harder. I feel like almost all of them felt borderline cases for the most part. Like you can almost shift them up or down. I want to say more up. I was a bit more cautious for most of these, and to see where you go. So that's one of the, for me at least, a very good sign with this core set. I didn't feel like it is mostly down low, and they failed with it. It's just that one, the Avengers, ironically, the one that's probably flagship for most people, didn't click with me. Now, in Try It, we have Masters of Evil. I liked what they did here, and I thought it was interesting. Thing is, it's, I think rightly so, listed as a high difficulty on the back of its card. They have the difficulties there. And I think that it's going to be one where you're probably going to want someone who really knows a bit more about Smash Up and how to manage their own power curve on places, because you want to hit that 4 power fast, but that means usually destroying your own minions for it. So it's going to probably want to pair up with a lot of people that can either spawn a lot of minions so you don't have to feel bad about destroying them for those points, or other weird things. So obviously your robots, your hydras, your shields, like I mentioned before. There are other things, guys who might give victory points, and maybe you want to look into that, like the aliens, and that could help them out as well. So they're really try it here because I think you're going to have to put in a lot more effort, but I find their strategy more enjoyable compared to Avengers. I didn't think it didn't feel like bad luck, at least as much in Avengers, and just not getting the draws. Now we hit fine, and honestly, these are all border. First, we're going to do Kree. To me, they're more balanced wizards. That's what they are. They've got playing a lot of actions, so you can guess you want to pair them up with anyone who's action oriented. Wizards, steampunk, anyone who loves actions, they're going to get along together. I feel like the Kree's biggest weakness is that they're Kree. I just don't care too much about them. I thought they were a little bit boring. The way the set was designed is you had 4 heroes and the 4 villains against them, and they are the ultimate villains. So they feel like they needed a villain there, and it just wasn't as interesting. I mean, the extra actions are good, and if they do beforehand, maybe, and I know depends on the comics versus the Marvel Cinematic Universe, the scroll could have been really cool, something very skin to shapeshifters, but they're not bad. It's extra actions and a bit more balance, but probably in terms of the theme, at least for me, the most boring in the Marvel set. I did put the Ultimates here too, but this is so close tier list. I think they do a much better job of moving around. And I will admit, I don't know as many of the characters from this set, but unlike the Kree, which to me feel bland, these people are obviously heroes. We know Captain Marvel just had the movie, and some of them we've been seeing hints of dropped actually in some of the Marvel Cinematic Universe stuff. I won't say what. So I am actually a bit more excited because they're named characters here. And I think they actually did a very good job. They do seem very powerful. Obviously, depends who you mix up. They could go easily into solid tier. And depending on who they're with, I honestly think Spider-Man is a solid pick for them because or ninjas, anyone that's a lot of specialty, because then they'll move around and then next thing you know, they'll drop a bunch of things and surprise everyone. But they probably could be paired up. You don't have to focus too much on who you pair up with. They still have a lot of fun, and I think they did a better Pirates. That's what I'm gonna say. Solid is our next pick, and this is where we get a bulk of our group. Here, we're going to start off with Shield. I think it is a much more balanced and fair version of the Spawn a lot of things. It still is very strong, but I don't feel as broken compared to some of the other ones, which we may talk about. I got Spider-Man here. Really good job on the special abilities. There are some times when you can feel like even though you have a bunch of these specials, you're just not going to beat up anyone. So they're going to need someone to help back them up a little bit. And I think, in particular, one, geeks can help because anything with special will help, and they have a lot of special out turns. But I also think, as I mentioned before, the Ultimates, Pirates too, but I think Ultimates they're in the Marvel, and also I think they're a little stronger. Moving around can really help make sure you have more control over bases. Speaking of control over bases, the Sinister Six, the way they lower that base cap and get these bonuses, not just because you lowered it so you can score it sooner, but you can get draws or maybe you guys get more power, is a lot of fun. And that base manipulation can be very interesting and can be a force to reckon with. For them, I think that a solid one would be dinosaurs. I didn't actually try this out. I didn't think about it until last minute, but they have some base manipulation things as well as if you think about it, they have the big Tyrannosaurus drop and other things. So, they can like, oh, I lowered 19 and I dropped 7 there. So I think those could be a great pair. Obviously, they have a lot of modifiers for bases. So things like steampunk and anything groups that like base modifiers are going to have a great time with the Sinister Six. Next up, likely pick it. It's groups I love, and that's where I put goblins. I know some people really hate randomness and things like this. It's like saying things that they hate items in Smash Brothers or they hate a lot of chaos effects and magic. I think the goblins work well. I think it's true to the spirit of Smash Up. You don't know what's going on. And in particular, the way they make it so heads you get a bonus, but tails you get something else for a lot of their cards means you don't have to feel like, well, I just wasted a turn. Sure, maybe it didn't go the way you did. I got times when I got 3 tails in a row for a card when I only wanted once. But overall, they're just so much fun to have at the table. Everyone's curious to see what is the Goblin player going to do and how is it going to end up. So I really think this is a great one, and as a single pack too, it's a pretty good one to pick up. Finally, this isn't a border case. I did put it in. We get it, and that's Hydra. They are just like robots. They spawn a lot, and they do it really well. And you destroy their stuff, and it doesn't really hurt them too much. It's really, they can be like, just like, as they say in the comics, cut one head off to grow back. They can be pretty good. And as long as they, I think the only problem is if they would pair up with something like the Avengers, probably wouldn't be that great of a thing. Or something else that doesn't have a 2 cost. Most things have something 2 or less. They're going to be fine. When you see them with Innsmouth, oh boy, Hydra Innsmouth, you better watch out. Those are where I'm putting all the new tier lists. In terms of, you can argue what my thoughts are on this, but in terms of these products by themselves. Let's start with Goblins because it's very simple. It's a 1-pack. I think the group is fantastic. It shows that there's still plenty of weird creative room, not just in terms of groups. Goblins, I think, are a great choice, but in terms of mechanics. So I'm really happy with that. Solid buy. So check that out on the AEG website. Now, Marvel Smash Up. As I said in the beginning, it's designed for people who are newer. And because of that, I made some changes like the characters and some naming. I'm not a fan of some of those. I really think they should try to go as uniform as possible unless they're planning to switch characters for in the future. I get it saying you're Captain America minion, but it's Smash Up. And you're hoping, at least I hope so, that if you buy this, you'll be like, oh, what else can I smash up with it? Now, another thing I think to point out is this is an actual copyrighted product. Now, we got the closed trademark, but it's also still kept generic. And that, at first, it made me think like, oh, do I really like this? It's Marvel. Is that what I think of? Like, I don't think, like, I get smashing up, dinosaur warriors from the Munchkin or, zombie wizards. But does that make sense with this? And I thought about it, and it does. And it works, not for everything, but I think comic books, ironically, it works really well with, strictly the American Hero comic books. Because, we've seen Altered Dimension. We have seen Zombie Avengers. There is a spider monkey. So, and of course, even matching with themselves, we have Hail Hydra, Captain America. So, I actually think it works oddly really well. And the Smash Up group. I don't know if I want the next few sets to be all like a bunch of different properties, especially some that, like I said, I don't think would work as well because they don't have that multiverse setup already in play. Like it may be, we assume there is, but it's not like as big of a deal. But compared to like DC or Marvel, but it works, and obviously attracting more people to it because it's that property. I cannot ignore that fact, and I completely understand where many would come from. And I don't think you should feel bad wanting to play with these sets. I think that's why they made them like, okay, I can still play with the robot gimmick of spawning things, but with S.H.I.E.L.D. or Hydra. And, pair them up with the superheroes. I really think you're going to get that superhero theme with Avengers in a really well, or, pair them up with zombies. Go for the zombie Avengers. Get that zombie Marvel storyline going on. Overall, I'm going to say both these products are successes on AEG's part. They showed off that they can take the copyrighted product with something that I think actually makes sense of the smash up. And the Goblins show that they still have some more tricks up their sleeve. Highly recommend that you check these products out if you are a fan of Marvel or you want something new for your set. Go with the Goblins. Really had fun for the most part with these, and they can make for some interesting mashups. Let me know how wrong I was on my tier list or whether you think things are up or down. And I'd love to know if they continue down this train with Marvel, who do you think should be added? Obviously, it's a huge site that we didn't see any X-Men or any of the mutants in here, but I can think of some other groups and maybe some cool abilities what you think they should have. Do you think there should be the X-Men should have a lot doing modifiers because they get different powers? What other Marvel groups do you think should be in here and what weird things would they do? Let me know in the comments down below. But until then, I'm Will, and thanks for joining me.
If you liked this video, then like the video and subscribe to our channel. That would be awesome of you. We've also got a Patreon page, so we thank our Patreon supporters who also get access to some cool bonus content. If you want to see more of us, we are streaming live on Twitch and a separate YouTube channel every single week. Check that all out at rollforcrit.com/live.